He's not here, but what to do? Do you have a WhatsApp? No? I don't have it. No. Good afternoon, everybody. We're running a little bit late already from the start, but and still waiting for a speaker on this lovely sunny afternoon. But I think we'll just get started because we have an absolute fantastic panel here today. So it's my absolute honor to welcome all of you to this side event. I hope you can see actually the presentation. Fantastic. So we are having here a side event on the UN raising ambition and delivery on the ground, multi-level climate action for local resilience. Why is this topic important? If you followed what's been happening here at COP, the discussions, you might have seen that this COP28 is really advancing collaborative, inclusive, and multi-level climate action. We've seen in the first days of COP a very historic movement of a record numbers of mayors, governors in the room for the Local Climate Action Summit. Fantastic momentum that has also dominated the news. So really a very strong signal that mayors are here at COP, not for the first time, not for the last time, but really here to stay and to also shape the discussions here at this climate conference. And maybe also to say, of course, we had the 1st and the 2nd of December, but these conversations have really continued throughout the first week. And also to say, it is the first week of COP that these conversations have happened, and not the second week, as it has often been. So really a strong signal that cities are here and are strong allies to help achieve the targets of the Paris Agreement. So we need cities because they're responsible for 70% of the emissions, but they're not only really responsible for emissions, but also victims of climate change. Over 70% of cities are already experiencing the impacts of climate change, ranging from floods, from landslides. Wonderful, thank you so much.
Sorry.
It is a big venue, you can get lost. Wonderful, thank you for joining us. So really they've been experiencing the impacts of climate change. So it is absolutely paramount that they are at the center of this discussion. So I'm happy to welcome you all to this official side event that's been hosted by UN Habitat, UNEP, UNCDF, UNDP, UNDRR, and UNUEHS. Lots of acronyms, but what that all means, we've been collaborating together to really bring this event here to COP28. So a big thank you for all the people behind the scenes who've made that happen. And with that, without further ado, let me give the floor to somebody who I hope actually does not need an introduction, but I will introduce her regardless. It's my honor to welcome Maimunah Sharif, the Executive Director of UN Habitat, to the stage. Edie, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Leah. Distinguished speakers, my friends and my partner, colleagues from the UN, UNEP, UNCDF, UNUEHS, UNDRR, UNDP, and all the others who cannot make it, but I'm sure they are in spirit with us because we are promoting one UN. And also honorable mayors, and Honorable Minister, thank you so much. Very good afternoon to all of you. It is my pleasure to welcome all participants, all distinguished speakers from all corners of the world to this side event led by UN Habitat. The United Arab Emirates believe in the motto of partnership promotes progress. His Excellency Dr. Sultan Ahmed Al-Jaber, Minister of Industry and Advanced Technology and Special Envoy for Climate Change, encourages to reflect it here at COP28. In that sense, I would like to start by giving my sincere thanks to the supporting United Nations agencies that have assisted with the organization of these sessions. This event attests that what we can achieve together as one UN. Cities must work together to address climate impacts. Building effective partnership across all levels of government is very essential for accelerating local climate actions. This requires strengthening coordination mechanism, sharing knowledge and resources, and aligning policies and strategies. Local governments, particularly the most vulnerable, often face significant financing gaps in implementing these necessary but straining climate action plans. UN Habitat recognizes the critical role of cities in combating climate change, not because as an urban planner, as a former mayor, but also this is the truth, because when it comes to the climate change, calamities, local government mayors are there at the forefront, and COVID-19 has really shown the result. So through our flagship program, Resilient Settlement for the Urban Poor, Rise Up, UN Habitat aims to mobilize large-scale investment in resilience for the most vulnerable urban communities. This will allow national and local governments and communities to have resources, knowledge, institutional capacities, and policy environment to accelerate climate resilient actions. In this way, vulnerable communities can transition into a resilient, green, just urban future. Last year, the Egyptian COP27 Presidency, with the support of UN Habitat, convened the first ever ministerial meeting on urbanization and climate change at COP27. This was a significant step in advancing multi-level and local climate action for the attainment of the Paris Agreement goals. Attended over 50 member states, the meeting endorsed the establishment of regular ministerial meeting on urban development and climate and saw the launch of the Sustainable Urban Resilience for the Next Generation, or in short, SURGE, because UN like to put acronym, SURGE initiative. But the long one is Sustainable Urban Resilience for the Next Generation. This year, second ministerial meeting on urbanization and climate change is to be held tomorrow, 6 December, here at COP. Please join us tomorrow at this ministerial meeting on urbanization and climate change. This is the curtain raiser for the thematic day of multi-level action, urbanization and built environment and transport. The ministerial meeting will reflect a collective commitment to tackling climate change complexities within urban context. The focus this year is how to accelerate local climate finance by facilitating dialogue between ministers of housing, urban development, environment, finance, as well as the local and regional governments running multilateral banks and also the other non-state actors. In the run-up to this important day, I would like to hear in today's discussion how we can make progress together to accelerate the local climate action. I think this year is a very, very important historic moment also that we have the Local Climate Action Summit, the first time at COP. And we would like the Local Climate Action Summit and the ministerial meeting to be the permanent agenda at COP. And please help us to push this through, because we need to tackle climate change in more holistic and integrated manner, not by ministerial Minister of Environment, Minister of Urbanization, Minister of Transport in a different way, but more integrated and holistic manner. So I think this is very important that tomorrow, the outcome of tomorrow's discussion to be brought to the table COP28 negotiation, to be included the voice of the local, the voice of the indigenous people, the voice of the local community, and also to be discussed with the ministers tomorrow so that we can have a say and a words, or also our voice to be in the main COP28 negotiation. As the focal point for sustainable urbanization and human settlement, UN Habitat is responsible for supporting local government and communities in building resilient and sustainable urban spaces, leaving no one and no space behind. We are committed to collaborating with partners at all levels to build resilient and sustainable cities that can withstand the impact of climate change and thrive in the low-carbon future. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow at the ministerial meeting on urbanization and climate change so that we can keep working together for a sustainable future for all. And I really hope that also the local climate action summit that the UN Habitat and I'm the co-chairs together with Michael Bloomberg and the COP28 presidency to be continued in COP28, COP28, COP29, COP30 and beyond. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Edie, for these inspiring words. And what I really appreciated about your intervention is that we need to tackle climate change in a more integrated and holistic way. And that's why also, just to re-emphasize, we will have this ministry meeting on urbanization and climate change tomorrow. And to say there will be lots of ministers of housing and urban development joining us tomorrow. And for many of them, it will be the first time at a COP, apart from the fact that first time at a COP and a COP in Dubai, which has a massive, it's going to be very challenging to walk around, but it's fantastic to have ministers of housing and urbanization here at a COP so that they can also translate what it means to have climate change mitigation and adaptation plans, work with their cities, and really get that message home that we need to work at the different levels of government. But without further ado, let me join to this fantastic panel that I have with me here today. We'll actually have 3 focus areas, which is great because we'll be able to discuss this topic of climate action and local resilience from a variety of different perspectives. And for that, I have very tough questions for each of the speakers to shed light on that. We'll have these 3 focus areas framed on one, how can we connect local, national, and global levels? A second one, how can international partners support local climate action? And then the third one, which is also the hardest one, how can we unlock climate finance for the local level, in particularly for the most vulnerable? So with that, let me dive directly into the first question. And Edie said that mayors are at the forefront. So with that, allow me to turn directly to a mayor, Honorable Mohamed Sifiani, who is the mayor of Chefchaouen in Morocco. I hope he is also not a stranger for those of us in the cities community, an ambassador for a variety of networks, for the Global Covenant of Mayors, working really in pushing this message out on the importance of cities. Also endorsed the Surge initiative that Edie just introduced. So could you share with us a little bit why you endorsed that initiative, what you hope this would also support your city with local climate action and how and resilience on the ground? Honorable Mayor, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Leah. I'm sorry for arriving late. I was in another room running to come to here, so sorry again. So it's a pleasure to be with you in this very important event. I am mayor of Chefchaouen. Chefchaouen is blue intermediary city painted blue in Morocco. but is engaged and committed to green and sustainability. Donc, we are working since many years in sustainability, climate. Chefchaouen is one activist city, as other cities in the world, in the climate universe, because we are convinced that without cities we can implement SDG agenda. We can't implement the new urban agenda. We can implement climate agenda. I think too that without multi-level action, we can't implement climate projects in our cities. In my city, for example, we have joined Global Covenant of Mayors since the beginning, since 2017. And we have the climate action plan. We have Chefchaouen Vision 2030 for the implementation of the global agenda. And we have many projects with the support of many organizations and with multi-level action. But cities, especially intermediate cities in the global south, we have challenges to implement. We have many challenges, and one of the challenges, technical assistance, because we don't have sufficient resources to implement our ambition, our climate ambition, our plans, our climate action. So is very important. Is why many global initiatives are very important. And this last year, for example, I was among the mayors with the networks, ICLE, who is facilitating the LGMA, with the Global Covenant of Mayors, with UCLG, and other networks of cities and regions. We were, as activists, walk to talk. I remember last year to go to the ministerial meeting, because since 2014, we are waiting for this very important meeting. And thank you, dear Executive General of UN Habitat. You know you have a heart of mayor. You didn't forget that you are a former mayor, and that facilitates that, because you live it one part of your life as a mayor, as the closest institution to the citizens. So the first challenge is technical assistance. Second, because we want to implement our action plans. The second one is finance. Finance is very important, and we need to have easy finance and direct finance. And I remember 2 days ago, or 3 days ago, on Sunday, we have very important meeting, and Mauricio is here, and we will talk about that. Around the same table, we have MDBs, we have mayors, we have representatives of national governments, we have networks and OECD and international organizations talking about the transformation of finance for cities and regions. Because now we have problem. It's the reality. To have finance now is easy for local government or for regional government. Many steps, many good things are down, but we have a great challenge. And we search initiative, I think that taking in our minds that this finance, the challenges will be facilitated. CHAMP and loss and damage fund is here now. The negotiation and the discussion are now. We don't want the same situation as the Green Fund, for example, and others. And 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, because we have political time, we have climate time, but the procedures and not easy for us. Less than 15% goes to cities. Less than 20% goes to adaptation. So we need to transform. The work of the Commission, SDG Commission Finance, is very important. The work of UN Habitat, of other agencies, as UNCDF, for example, and others, the works of networks. I am joined in the different networks. I see what the work done. I think is time, is momentum to have easier access to finance and direct access to finance. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mayor. Really making my job also incredibly easy because you've already summarized everything perfectly in the lead up to the focus area 3, but also perfectly linking to my next speaker, because you spoke about the importance of networks, the importance of collaboration at the different levels of government, the importance of really coming together as a community to make all of this happen. So I'm very honored to have Malik Al-Jabai here with us. You specialize in science policy interface, focusing on climate adaptation and mitigation in urban environments for the Harari Foundation for Sustainable Human Development. And that foundation has over 2,000 partners, global, local, national frameworks. Can you share with us some examples of how you work across different levels of governments, how you connect these different frameworks to really also empower local climate action?
Thank you, Leah. And it's really an honor to be here among you and to share the experience of what we are piloting and implementing in Lebanon. So let me start by saying that I believe that we all concur that we agree with numerous leading authors, scholars, and lessons learned from case studies that multi-level action and multi-stakeholder collaboration and cooperation are crucial to combat the climate crisis. However, the challenges are with how to activate this multi-level governance and how to move forward with what governance approaches are being used and utilized at a vertical level, at a horizontal level, and who's involved at what stage. And at Hariri Foundation, we comprehend that activating this multi-level model of governance and action requires actually an understanding of the modes of governance that drives the sustainability transitions, and here particularly about the urban sustainability transition. And in other words, to understand the modes of urban climate governance, and these modes, if utilized effectively, can better position different stakeholders in accelerating the urban sustainability pathways. So for instance, Leah, you asked me about the experiences, like gaining a nuanced understanding of the governance roles adopted by our partners, including United Nations Environment Program in West Asia, and the Ministry of Environment in Lebanon, and the municipality of Saida, where we are piloting our projects. Whether they are governing by authority, by regulating, they are governing by self-governance or enabling, empowers stakeholders like us, like Hariri Foundation as implementing body, to strategically position ourselves in the transition. So to understand and to ensure the effective delivery of a regional and a national action to the local level, employing a top-down approach, but also in addition, if utilizing a bottom-up approach, that our partners needs to understand, our national and regional partners need to understand and grasp the intricacies of our initiatives, local initiatives, that can better align themselves with the governance mechanisms that we are utilizing. So let me now contextualize what I'm trying to say. In Saida, now with our partners, the United Nations Environment Program and the Municipality of Saida and the Ministry of Environment, we are working on the roadmap of Saida towards environmentally sustainable city, where we are governing with our partners through networking and partnership governance, each understanding their mode in the transition and in the strategizing of the roadmap. So in this sense, this roadmap includes 3 different phases, from the preparations to the implementation and evaluation. And each aims at utilizing actions based on policies, each utilizing on evaluating policies and trying to shift towards a policy change instead of implementing isolated projects. So instead of having islands of projects, having a comprehensive understanding of what policy we are following and what the policy change is required. And in this matter, I should really highlight that the consultations and the consultative process that this roadmap is using is utilizing all the possible good practice models by capturing global agenda, scientific frameworks, local and indigenous knowledge, by nationally designated authority that is ensuring the overarching aim of what we are doing and how it is aligned with the national orientations, but also with the local priorities. And allow me to also highlight that this connection always tend to miss the fact and the importance of education. And for that, we strategically decided with our partners that a Green Academy shall be implemented in Lebanon. And this Green Academy, call it the Outreach and Leadership Green Academy in Lebanon, aims to provide diverse array of trainings and capacity building activities aimed at mitigating and adapting to climate change, but also understanding exactly what we are discussing today. How can the global agenda, how can what is discussed today in COP be translated and implemented with our local priorities in Lebanon, but also how that is affecting and how much this could actually influence changing their consuming behavior, their lifestyle behavior, how they are redefining economy, how they're redefining their lifestyles. And for that, we, of course, had a streamline of experts, ranges from regional, global, and local experts to mainstream this kind of knowledges. And also, when it comes to the connections, we lack data. And this is obviously one of probably the most mentioned obstacle and challenge about any moving forward agenda, the lack of data. And the data starts from the local level. If we really want to move forward with our scientific indicators, with our global agenda. And for that, with our partners together, we are establishing the SIDA Urban Observatory, and this observatory aims to feed into the roadmap that we talked about with its initiatives, with how much it is actually feeding into the national and the global agenda, and accordingly, to feed into the progress or to influence the policy change that is needed. And allow me to conclude by one, I would say, remarkable experience during the pandemic, where we partnered with the National Disaster Risk Management Unit, which is an actual UNDP program in Lebanon, and also with the United Nations Disaster Risk Reduction Regional Office for the Arab States in piloting preparedness assessments and in also drafting local action plans, and later to lead the implementation of what was actually collected in creating networks and creating communities of practice to discuss what are the gaps, how can we fill these gaps, and what went well, and how we can actually mainstream what went well with our, for triangulation with other nations that share similar socio-political and socio-economic conditions. And lastly, I would like to highlight that collaboration is a key, and it's always mentioned that it's the key for breakthroughs. However, in reality, collaboration serves as the lock for your breakthroughs, and building long-lasting partnerships is the key to unlock and unleashing the right collaborations and breakthroughs and breakthrough actions on multi-level scale and with multi-level stakeholders, focusing from activating collaboration to unlocking collaboration through partnerships. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Malik. It's going to be really difficult trying to summarize all these rich things that the two of you gentlemen have just shared with us, but I shall try regardless. What I see there is, Mayor, you've mentioned the importance of technical assistance, of easy. I liked how you highlighted easy and direct finance, that it shouldn't be so complicated, that we need to have projects like implementation that is integrated and not just putting on one set of lens that is very narrow-minded, capacity building, and then also, of course, we are all here at COP. but how can we actually translate what is happening here, the discussions that we are having here, to the ground? And maybe just to tell you a little anecdote, I asked every cab driver here in Dubai, I'm going to the COP. And they all looked at me and they said, what do you mean, the COP? What is the COP? The Global Climate Conference. We have no idea. So that translation needs to happen. And it is, of course, upon all of us to ensure that these messages that are being shared here in Dubai really reach the local level and reaches everybody as well. But with that, let me turn to the second focus area to really see, okay, what's also the role of international partners to support local climate action and also have these integrated approaches that we just discussed to advance sustainable development and climate resilience. And for that, I again have an absolute fantastic expert panel to help us answer that question. And if I find my paper, I'll make it work. First, I have a question for you. Ruth, sitting at almost at the very end. You are the current head of UNEP Energy and Climate Branch. You oversee a vast portfolio that includes cities, energy, buildings. We briefly talked about you having to wear all these different hats here at COP, and also a large number of projects under the GEF, under the Global Environment Fund. So tapping into this vast experience, can you tell us a little bit more about effective collaboration between national and local governments, and also how to design these integrated approaches that also address both mitigation and adaptation? I think something that the fellow panelists have also mentioned. Ruth, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Yeah? Okay. Thank you very much. I'm hearing very carefully everything that is being said. And first I would like to reflect upon the fact that you have the ministerial tomorrow. I was in the C40 breakfast a few days ago, and the mayors were super happy that they were out of the green zone to the blue zone. And that is fantastic. And I think this really changes, I think, the discourse and the dialogue. And the fact that this becomes a permanent issue, it's extremely important. And I think we should collectively fight for that this is a permanent issue. This is something that is complicated, not because people don't want to do this, because the nationally determined contributions are organized per sector. Mm-hmm. They are not organized per subnational contributions to the country's emissions. So the country's emissions are organized per sector. So the important contribution and the emissions that come from cities, they are dispersed in the waste sector and the transport sector. You don't have subnationals. But we have some capacity building initiative transparency projects from the Global Environment Facility that finances this area that is called transparency under the climate agreement, that are beginning to try to overlap the subnational actually emissions with the sectoral emissions. And that's complex because you have to avoid the double counting of emissions when you do that. And you won't be able to capture all the subnationals in a country. So how do you do that? Maybe you can collect 80% of the larger cities and extrapolate and see how it goes. And some countries are beginning to have databases and inventories that actually are trying to do that. So data is extremely important, and action is extremely important. And I think maybe the next move should be to try to get subnational NDCs that add up, at least collectively, to the NDC of the countries. And I think that will have a much stronger data, because the implementation resources that will come will actually be able to also come to the subnational level. So I think that is an important aspect. The second point that I would like to say, and I'm talking to the converters, you know that 70% of emissions come from cities, mostly come from buildings, transport, and food waste. It's not, and food waste is a lot about behavior and city layout and all that. So it's extremely important to act on these areas and to show that these areas have impact within the city's willingness to reduce emissions and to become more resilient. So I have a written thing here, but I'll go a little bit off script. We have many examples of how local level actually cooperate with the national level. We had the honor in UNEP to lead the Sustainable Cities program of the Global Environment Facility in what we call the 7th cycle of the GEF. And by doing that with many partners, and UN Habitat, you are a partner with us in one of the partnership engagement group, but also with CLAY, C40, WRI, we have more than 23 cities in the program through cooperation with 9 countries across the different geographies. And the global program has many areas of technical assistance and cooperation, as you highlighted. And one of them is multi-level governance. And what we're trying to do is to capture experiences in some of the cities that do participate in the program and see how these happen in practice. So we have learned, for instance, that in Brazil, we have a project in Recife and in Brasilia. And in, as you can see, I'm Brazilian, so from my accent immediately. So in Recife, we have something that is called filtering gardens. Recife is a city in the northeast of Brazil. It's a coastal city, and it has a river, and the population has put their back to the river instead of actually using the river as recreational. Well, it's not a clean river, let's say it like that. It's a divide between the poor and the rich, and there are not a lot of bridges, so it's very difficult to cross from one side to the other. So it's very complex, the situation. And through this project, and trying to bring, UNEP is not a financial agency, so to technical assistance and evidence on the ground, what we try to show to the local government, to the national government through the project is evidence that there are things that actually can work, so then finance can flow with evidence and data, because when you're going to go to the bank to de-risk your investment, you have to show some evidence that what you're saying actually does work and that the business model works. And these filtering gardens is a nature-based solution to clean the river. You can't 100% use it, but in Nanterre, for instance, in France, this is used to clean actually the wastewater that is there. In Recife, it's a bigger problem, but we're testing it. And since we work with the Ministry of Science, Technology, and Innovation, which they are very interesting, well, the President of Brazil decided to take this example and actually make other cities use it through some policy decisions. So that's it's a way of bringing lessons learned and multi-level governance on evidence that you do on the ground through policy making, and then also through maybe further finance from the allocation of the Ministry of Finance or budget allocation. I have many other examples, but I think we don't have enough time. But in Brasilia as well, we do have a system that actually allows horizontal integration, not only vertical integration. So we develop a system that the city have done a spatial planning, not spatial planning, a spatial overview of the whole city with the geographical information, and they use this as a decision-making platform for different secretaries to make decisions on, for instance, environmental licensing. So everybody uses the same database to make decisions. And this is really helpful because it's a spatial way of making decisions. And that's a huge endeavor to actually get all this data, visually speaking, and keep it up to date. And many other issues are being discussed, especially on real estate development, land use planning, preserved areas, and there is always these. Brasilia is as you know, it's a city that it's not a city; it's the federal district, and the area within the center has. It's very valuable for real estate. In the skirts of the city, you can't actually have development because that where is the water and the springs that provide water to the city. So if you don't preserve that area, then you don't have water to the city, but the real estate wants to develop there because it's very valuable. So all these dimensions are very important to be captured, and if you have a platform to decision making, this is something that works quite well, and then different secretaries can actually work on that. Then just to finalize, I think that unlocking finance to the city, which is going to be the next, I think, focus area, is extremely important. I don't think we have cracked that yet. There are a lot of development banks that need national sovereignty for their loans. And if you are in different political parties, it's even more difficult. So it becomes a political issue. It's not even a technical issue. You can have creditworthiness at the city level, but it doesn't work. So how we can overcome this is I think, a very important area of focus. And we stand ready to continue this and think together how we can work collectively to address these issues. And I invite you to go to the Urban Shift website. It's called shiftcities.org, and it has a wealth of information, all the experiences of all the cities and programs that are there. And we have also massive training materials for technical assistance. And I saw that Kumar was here, but I think from ICLEI he left, right? But we have done a city academy in India very recently. I don't know if you are aware, but where we provided a space for peer-to-peer learning between cities and finance academies with C40 and ICLEI and many other resources you can find there. So thank you very much, and thank you for having me here. Cities is very close to my heart.
Thank you so much, Ruth, and thank you for going off script, because you actually shared some very interesting examples, real-life examples that showcase how collaboration works, and also the challenges of collaboration if there is different political parties, if there's different interests that are represented. So really, thanks for that. And I'm also taking away a big thing there on data, that we actually need to know our baseline. We need to understand what's happening on the ground. We also need to understand what people want, and data can help us with all of that. With that, let me turn to the very, very right, on my right, to Mr. Guoli Gao. You are a leading expert on regional economic development. In China, your research focuses a lot on regional development, land management, regional planning, so wealth of expertise. You're also the director of the China Center for Urban Development. So could you share with us how the center is accompanying Chinese cities? So again, an example on collaboration on the ground in adopting sustainable and integrated urbanization practices. Goli, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Lee. And I'm very glad to have this opportunity to exchange views on the question of the how can international partners support local action for an integrated approach to sustainable development and climate resilience. You know, the CCUD, I'm working in the organization for some years, is a specialized high-end think tank directly under the National Development and Reform Commission, focusing on urbanization, urban development, and planning. And also, it can be seen not only an urban platform, but also a government think tank to provide research support for the central government and even for the State Council of the PRC, and to provide policy consultation, planning recommendation, publicity, and other services for cities and small towns in China. In recent years, the center has participated in many short-term and long-term planning making, such as the fourth five-year plan and the new urbanization planning, etc. So at the same time, the CCUD also actively serves local communities by providing policy consultation and planning services for the different levels of local governments in China, In China, we have 5-level local governments: provincial, municipal, and town, and even county level. So we have the 4-level local governments. So next, I would like to take this opportunity to share my thoughts on how CCUD can help Chinese cities achieve sustainable urbanization. First of all, in recent years, in cooperation with UN Habitat, the World Bank, the Energy Foundation, the World Health Organization, the World Economic Forum, and ICLA, we have been tracking and accumulating the concepts and practices of green and low-carbon development in domestic and foreign cities over a long period of time, and have published many books, especially on the low-carbon green development in local cities in China. And the CCUD also held 6 consecutive sessions of the International High-Level Forum on Sustainable Urban Development, held in Chengdu, a western famous city in China, forming a cooperation and exchange mechanism. The mechanism covers many cities and encourages enterprises, think tanks, and to participate in the construction of sustainable cities in China. Furthermore, it should be emphasized that CCUD has been implementing many international programs. For example, the construction of the China Sustainable Cities Platform of the GEF7, Green and Carbon Neutral Cities project, since November 2022. It aims at promoting the practical experience in green and low-carbon development in cities at home and abroad, and enhancing the capacity of cities' sustainable development. CCUD also focuses on research on topics related to cities' green and low-carbon development, and carries out capacity building programs. We held many, a large number of capacity building programs for many developing countries. Meanwhile, the GEF7 Green and Carbon Neutral Cities project has selected 3 cities in China: Chongqing, a western city; Chengdu, also a western city; and also Ningbo, a coastal city in China. The 3 cities as pilot cities to promote research and practice in the areas of green and high-quality development indicators, green and low-carbon city construction, realization of ecological value, and biodiversity conservation. And as everyone knows, sustainable urban development is the key to the implementation of the United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Chinese cities are actively implementing the goal of peaking carbon emissions in 2030 and achieving carbon neutrality in 2060. The cities make efforts to accelerate the promotion of a comprehensive green transformation of economic and social development by adjusting their industrial structure. And also including construction of a clean, low-carbon, safe and efficient energy system, transportation system, upgrading the quality of green and low-carbon development in urban and also rural areas, and consolidating the capacity of carbon sinks. And at the just concluded 3rd Belt and Road Forum for International Cooperation held in Beijing, China took the promotion of green development as one of its 8 actions to support high-quality Belt and Road cooperation in order to further consolidate the foundation of sustainable urban development and enhance development consensus. The Belt and Road Sustainable Cities Alliance, led by CCUD, plans to launch a sustainable development initiative focusing on the following 6 points. Firstly, livability. I think livability is a fundamental request for cities' sustainable development. We propose to build comfortable, convenient, and livable cities, create more livable cities through a people-centered approach with the intensive and efficient production space, livable and convenient living space, and a beautiful ecological space, making cities a beautiful home where people live in harmony with the nature. Secondly, resilience. We propose to build safe, agile, and resilient cities. Urban resilience shall be evaluated according to the principles of systematization, flexibility, and synergy, and also emergency response, as well as the preparedness and response. And the requirements of resilient cities are integrated into the entire city planning. Thirdly, innovation. Innovation is the key for the urban sustainable development. We propose to build dynamic and innovative cities. As innovation continues to be the primary driving force for development, the paths and the institutional space shall be expanded for citizens, institutions, enterprises to participate in urban innovation. Fourthly, intelligence. The smart cities construction is becoming more and more important for the urban sustainable development. We propose to build efficient and smart cities in the principles of developing intensive, efficient, economical, smart, green, and safe, reliable cities. We strive to build digitalized, connected, and intelligent new infrastructure, mainstream smart city into urban management services, and enhance the sense of gain, happiness, and security for urban residents. Fifthly, greenness. Green development is also the key for the urban sustainable development. We propose to build clean and low-carbon cities. The concept of green, low-carbon, and ecological civilization shall be reflected in the whole process of urban development. A low-carbon, circular economy be developed, and compact cities be built to promote green and low-carbon production, lifestyle, and urban operation. Sixthly, humanity. We propose to build inclusive, harmonious, and cultural cities in the principle of equality, inclusiveness, and mutual learning among civilizations. The protection of cultural diversity is being very important for the urban sustainable development, especially for the humanity development. So finally, CCUD as a high-end think tank, not only for the central government, but also for the local governments. We welcome cities, institutions, and enterprises committed to sustainable development to join our Sustainable Urban Development Alliance and carry out in-depth cooperation in terms of rules and standards, key technologies, policy tools, projects and talents, investment and financing, jointly explore high-quality urban development paths and models. share development experience, and contribute to the implementation of the United Nations 23rd Agenda for Sustainable Development. And finally, thank you for listening.
Thank you so much. I really appreciated how you highlighted livability, people-centered cities, and making cities really also a place where people can live and where urban innovation also lives. We are running behind, but how can I say no to a request from somebody who's also co-hosting this event with us? So, Ruth?
Yeah, no, thank you very much. I would like to say that in this Urban Shift program, we have China as one of the countries, and the project is implemented by the World Bank, and I'm super happy that you mentioned all the good work that China is doing, and China new cities are extremely advanced. With your help, I think that would be great. Morocco is part of the program as well, and the project is implemented by UNDP, and Marrakesh, I think it's the city that is part of the program, but there, I think there are other cities as well that can benefit, and there are other countries as well. I could not forget to mention the team behind, Sharon and Elsa, that have been actually spearheading this work in UNEP. And I would like to invite you to the UNEP Pavilion on the 8th of December, on Friday at 12:30. It's on B7, Building 87, the Zone B7. We're gonna have an Urban Shift event, and if you would like to learn more and if you're still around, it would be great to host you there. Thank you very much, and sorry for taking 2 minutes more.
Thanks so much, Ruth. Always good to know where we can continue the conversation, so that's always welcome. We always want to make sure that this is not the end of the conversation, but the beginning. So with that, we talked about collaboration and needing to bring everybody to the table, but unfortunately the table here is not big enough to host our third focus group. So unfortunately, I need to let focus group area 1 and focus group area 2 panelists go. Can we just give them a round of applause again? And with that, invite my second panel to the stage. So that's Ms. Laura Arevelos, Mauricio Rodas, and I think Dennis Mugaga, you're already here. So please don't run away. What we'll be discussing here now is what the big burning question of what do we need to do to get more money into cities. So please. So what we'll discuss here, while we're having a shift of panel here, what we'll discuss here is how can we unlock climate finance for local governments, particularly for the most vulnerable. And just to say, this is the most vulnerable, and the urban poor are really the ones who will be bearing and are already bearing the brunt of the climate change impacts. Because of not having access to finance, because of living in areas that are prone to flooding, flash floods, landslides, and so on. So really this importance of we need money for cities, but we also specifically need it for the most vulnerable. And with that, let me actually this time start from the very right and invite Laura Arevelos to give her intervention, and she's a community referent at Villa 20, a slum neighborhood in Buenos Aires. So really fantastic to have somebody here who has that experience and to share with us some of the challenges and progress of participatory reurbanization process in the light of climate change impacts. Laura, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, hi. I'm Laura Arevalos. I'm a neighborhood and representative of Villa 20 in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Our neighborhood proves that issues relating to the environment, climate action, and social justice can be worked on difficult conditions. Popular neighborhoods suffer immediately the consequences of climate change. We have been part of a reurbanized process that includes 9,000 families, 40,000 people for 8 years as a part of participatory working groups with the government. In these last 2 years, through the transformative Urban Coalition project, we have dedicated ourselves to producing and executing projects related to environmental care and social issues in Villa 20. This has changed our neighborhood and the way of thinking, executing, and living from environmental perspective. I think that public policies, projects, and budgets must be considered long-term for the communities, especially for women, because we know our territory the best. These instruments must be sufficient and able to reach the areas and neighborhoods that most need them. They must strengthen community networks and connect with different and new actors that guarantee the inclusion of popular neighborhoods and help their projects, perspective, and knowledge grow again, especially for women. It's very difficult to talk in another language. Es muy difícil para mí hablar en otro idioma. Espero que se pueda entender la perspectiva de los barrios populares, los barrios más pobres, carentes de nuestro país y de nuestra ciudad. So thank you.
Thank you so much for really that local perspective, and I really appreciated you bringing in something that we haven't discussed today. That's a gender perspective, that we also really need to ensure that cities are safe spaces for women, that I think we had at Alcas a standing ovation for the comment really on women. Women mayors are the future and are getting stuff done. So thank you for that perspective. And with that, let me turn to you, Mauricio. I think you're one of the champions of really the cities and sustainable urbanization topic. Everywhere you go, you see Mauricio and Mayor Sefiani, actually. No, but as fantastic champions of really this topic. You're the previous mayor of Quito. You are also, of course, currently a visiting scholar at the Penn Institute, and you have a large experience working with different communities, city networks at the global level, a local level. So what's, in your experience, what do we need to do to operationalize existing finance mechanism for urban climate action? What's the silver bullet, the golden key that we all need to know? Mauricio.
Well, thank you so much, Leah, and thank you to UN Habitat and the different UN agencies and programs that have organized this very important session. I think that the first thing we need to understand when thinking about, the landscape of cities' climate finance is the fact that we are facing an international financial system that was designed for countries, not for cities. It was actually designed in the 1940s under Bretton Woods, when the world was not nearly as urbanized as it is today. Things have changed. We live in a different world now, in a different reality, in a highly urbanized world. So therefore, that global financial architecture is not fit for purpose anymore. If one thinks about the size of the financial gap for cities, it is really scary. It is estimated, according to CCFLA, that between 4.5 and 5.4 trillion dollars per year are needed at the urban level to transform infrastructure into a climate resilient one. And clearly, under the status quo, it is impossible for cities to access such magnitude of resources under that country-focused international financial system. So if we all agree about the pivotal role of cities in the battle against climate change because of what everything knows, the fact that it is in cities where more than 70% of CO2 emissions are taking place. It is in cities where more than 80% of global GDP is being produced, where more than half of the population lives, so on and so forth. If we all understand that pivotal role of cities in the battle against climate change, we realize then that without an effective role from cities, it will be impossible for countries to meet their NDCs and to meet the Paris Agreement goals. Now, for cities to be able to undertake that effective role in tackling climate change, they need resources in the magnitude that I just mentioned, which they unfortunately are not able to access under the current circumstances. And let's put some figures to this argument. In around 40% of countries in the world, cities are legally banned from international borrowing. In only 14% of countries in the world, cities can have access to international finance with no restriction. And in all other countries, cities need to meet different obstacles to access international finance, from getting the authorization of legislative bodies, either at the state or the national level, to having to get national government's guarantees. National government guarantees that frequently are not granted because of political rivalries between the president and the mayor, something that I personally suffer from. So, for me, it is scary to think that because of politics, cities are not being able to get the resources needed to tackle the biggest threat humanity faces right now, which is climate change. But that's reality. And that's why we need to understand the urgency of promoting key reforms to the global financial architecture to make it more cities-friendly. Now, I've been speaking about the supply side of the equation. So the fact that because we are living under a country-led financial system, there's not enough opportunities for cities to access finance. Now let's look at the demand side of the equation, because it is also true that in many cases, cities lack the capacity for developing bankable projects. In many other cases, cities lack enough levels of credit worthiness. Let me put a number on this argument. According to the World Bank, less than 20% of the 500 largest cities in the developing world are deemed credit worthy. We're talking here about the largest 500 cities in the developing world. Can you imagine the situation of the medium-sized and small cities? It is very likely much worse. So this is the kind of reality cities also face. I mean, they unfortunately are not in a good shape to access finance. So we need to deploy a lot of resources in developing technical capacity for project preparation, in providing mechanisms to increase cities' financial stability and creditworthiness levels, among other things. So what can we do about all of these challenges? As I said, we need to promote the reform of the international financial system, in my view, in a very disruptive way. And that's what we are trying to do through the Sustainable Development Solutions Network Global Commission for Urban SDG Finance. This is a commission that was launched last June in Paris. It is co-chaired by the mayor of Paris, Anne Hidalgo, the mayor of Rio de Janeiro, Eduardo Paez, and the founder and president of the Sustainable Development Solutions Network, Professor Jeffrey Sachs. This commission has now 16 mayors, among them, of course, Mayor Sifiani from the city of Chefchaouen, representing with a lot of enthusiasm, like he always does, representing the interest of medium-sized and small cities around the world, and as a great champion for cities' climate finance as well. We have representatives from the main city networks, C40, the Global Covenant of Mayors, ICLEI, UCLG, the Resilient Cities Network. We have leaders from different international financial institutions, representatives from the private sector, the academia, civil society. And this commission is working on analyzing the current cities climate finance landscape to identify opportunity areas for reform on key aspects, like, for example, taking advantage of the current MDB reform process. So these institutions can develop new direct financial facilities for cities. We have to, without having to go through national governments like it is the case today, because once that happens, we all know that the process becomes highly politicized. We're also exploring bold, innovative ideas, like, for example, setting up a Green Cities Guarantee Fund to circumvent the need of national sovereign guarantees. Or we're also promoting the idea, why not, of creating a Green Cities Development Bank, like a World Bank for cities that will develop direct financial facilities to cities through concessional credits, that would work on delivering technical assistance to cities for increasing their project preparation capacity and their credit worthiness levels, that would refine a robust pipeline of projects ready to be invested in by the private sector, for example, because we all understand that, unfortunately, the private sector is not used to work with cities. In many cases, the private sector just don't realize the kind of needs cities have, and on the other way, cities don't understand the kind of motivations that private sector should need to have in order to invest at the urban level. So we need to get together cities and the private sector so they can mutually understand each other. This Green Cities Development Bank can also work on blended finance packaging. It can, of course, also provide guarantees to cities in a direct way. So the fact of having a specialized financial institution for cities is something that the current state of affairs, a highly urbanized world in which cities are at the forefront of dealing with some of the world's most pressing issues, is something definitely worth considering, and spaces like this, COP28, is a very meaningful one to do so. Finally, I would like to highlight what I consider a very positive aspect of the discussions on the Loss and Damage Fund. As you know, on November 30, during the first day here at COP28, there was a decision agreed upon by member states so as to have the Loss and Damage Fund being operative. And on the decisions document, it is explicitly mentioned that the resource, a part of the resources coming from the Loss and Damage Fund should be channeled directly into subnational governments. That's great news, because that's a recognition on the important role of cities on tackling climate change and their need to access directly money to do that accordingly. So as a Global Commission on Urban SDG Finance, we are actually presenting a statement tomorrow in which we are recognizing how positive it is that it has been recognized the need for subnational governments to access directly resources coming from the Loss and Damage Fund, but devil is in the details. So cities are asking a seat at the table of the negotiations on how the loss and damage will be actually operative in order to make sure that those resources, or part of them, are being channeled directly into cities and regions. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mauricio. And I think that number that is really hitting home is the 4.5 to 5.4 trillion, a number that I cannot even imagine what that means. That is the GDP of countries. That is a massive number to really understand how much money we will need and how little money currently is going to cities. So thanks so much for all of this, and Professor Jeffrey Sachs will also join us tomorrow at the ministerial meeting. So I hope he bring that message also to ministers and leaders who will be in the room, so that they also hear that message loud and clear. So again, the opportunity to link several events together, which is always welcome. And last, and I know Mauricio, you need to leave, so please be excused. Thank you so much again for joining us. And I'll see you tomorrow. See you tomorrow. And without further ado, last but definitely not least, and actually would have hoped that this would be a nice conversation because Mauricio was having some words on the role of national governments and not being able to give money to cities. So I'm really curious to hear now your perspective, Dennis Mugaga. You are a leading Ugandan economist at the Ugandan Climate Finance Unit at the Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning. So from your experience at the national level, how is your government working to unlock climate finance at the local level, and what existing financing solutions can be scaled up, also to ensure, to come back to a topic we had in the beginning, that money reaches the most vulnerable? Dennis, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for this opportunity to also give a word on the focus of government of Uganda, specifically the Ministry of Finance, when it comes to local-led investments towards climate action. Now, I just want to state some facts about Uganda. One is we are an LDC, and I'm from an event where they've just launched, we've just signed a declaration to improve on simplified access to climate finance, showing that as LDCs, we have challenges when it comes to climate finance access. And on the side of the Ministry of Finance, we have looked at the impact of climate change on our economy, and we think that we are losing close to 3 to 7% annually. And actually, when it comes to this impact is mostly at the local level and at the cities. So this discussion is really important because if you look at our Uganda Revenue Authority figures, when it comes to days when it floods in the city, the losses that we have are really immense. So we have designed a number of actions in our NDCs, which should be a Bible when it comes to climate action, whether at the national level or local level. And we think that we should raise 28.1 billion. So imagine we are here negotiating for 100 billion annually, but Uganda requires close to 28% of that financing just for its action until 2030. So as government of Uganda, we have set up a climate finance unit this year with support from partners, UNCDF and other partners, the UK government, to make sure that we have dedicated staff that are thinking about actions at the city level and actions at the local level that speak to climate change. Now, we anchor most of our support to our policies and programs. We already have a vision 2040 for Uganda and the National Development Plan that specifically highlight the importance of climate action at both levels, national and subnational. And currently, around 2021, we passed an act that requires, a climate change act that requires that all local levels have to have climate action plans. And these actions help us to understand what are the requirements for these local governments and cities that they require to undertake actions when it comes to climate change. Now, we have piloted a number of actions so far. We have the local climate adaptive living facility, which is local, spearheaded by the UNCDF, that has so far undertaken some actions in 8 districts with support from the Belgian government and the EU, we have 8 districts where districts are deciding on which actions. We have a list of actions that each of the districts can decide on, and we are giving them performance-based conditional grants. So we have already undertaken these, at least the first cycle, and we see that there's improvement in terms of uptake of actions at the local level, and we want to scale up this. We have, at the cities level, we have some of the actions under the Uganda Support to Municipalities and Infrastructure Development Program under the World Bank that is looking at how can infrastructure in the cities be adaptive when it comes to climate action, climate change. And we see that there has been an improvement in the infrastructure in all the municipalities and cities where this project has been. A case in point, we have a city called Gulu. Flooding has really gone down to a level, I think, maybe 20% flooding because of those actions. But now we want to have a second phase of this USMID program to make sure that we increase on the city's capability to cope and to adapt to the effects of climate change. We are currently thinking, and we know, that development, climate change without linking it to development the development agenda of a country will not yield any, even when we input financing towards climate change, but we don't look at the development side, then the actions are not going to yield anything. Because there's a direct linkage between poverty and climate change effects in a country, because a poor person needs to adapt. And the only way they can adapt is using resources that are available. And some of these are natural resources. So we are working with the World Bank currently to develop a country climate development report that is looking at what are the hotspots at every level, whether at the district level, whether at the national level, whether at the cities, to understand what can we invest in to make sure that these hotspots are managed. And we think that this report will be ready around June next year. And we want to use this as a tool to mobilize resources. We know that grants are not, they're really going down as a Minister of Finance, looking at our figures. But we know that there's concessional financing that we can access towards climate action. So we are trying to use this analysis, the modeling that we are undertaking, to make sure that we can front this and use this to engage the different partners. And I really want to also state it that collaboration between all agencies and all partners and stakeholders is really important when it comes to these actions. Whether private sector, you've heard what the previous speakers have talked about, academia on the knowledge learning, the civil society on advocacy, government agencies because they are the ones that implement these projects, and development partners on providing the catalytic financing that we require for governments to scale up. So we are trying to undertake some of these actions. We think that we want to use that development report to also get some financing from the IMF under the Resilience and Sustainability Facility that is actually going to scale up this locally led adaptation action. So we want to increase resilience at that level, but using the big money. Because with small money, it's just a drop in the ocean. So I'd like to thank you for inviting me. As I've seen, actually I was an old man out because everyone was talking cities. But thank you for giving me an opportunity to share what government of Uganda is doing when it comes to locally led adaptation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dennis. And I think you highlight the big need of that what money is needed. If you need 28% of the money that's available, there is not, we will only be able to support 4 countries. So it just shows we need more money to go to this issue.
That is true.
And with that, I would like to invite a gentleman that I also don't think needs much introduction, really a front runner also on this topic of finance and cities and local development and urbanization. It's my absolute pleasure to invite Honorable Minister Bruno Koni to the lectern here to provide some closing remarks. He's the Minister of Construction, Housing and Urban Development of Côte d'Ivoire. Honorable Minister, the floor is yours.
I think I've felt in a trap because I was supposed to talk in French.
I can translate.
And okay, I've seen here that there is no simultaneous translation. So, Leah, I can count on you. I will speak some words in most of my message in French, and you can translate. First, I think we can give a round of applause to all the panelists because they have made very rich presentations. En ce qui me concerne, j'ai pris de nombreuses notes parce que les présentations étaient très intéressantes, très riches. Et je pense que c'est le cas pour la majorité des participants. Je voudrais également vous remercier, vous qui êtes restés jusqu'à cette heure, pour l'intérêt que vous avez donné à ces thématiques. Je n'ai que 5 minutes. En 5 minutes, je pense qu'il n'est pas utile de revenir sur tout ce qui a été dit, qui a été très bien dit. Et Léa a eu la bonne idée chaque fois de faire un résumé des différentes thématiques, donc je ne vais pas y revenir. Mais je voudrais juste dire que quand on regarde tout ce qui a été présenté ici, il y a en réalité deux aspects principaux sur lesquels nous devons travailler. Le premier aspect, c'est comment travailler le mieux possible au plan local et au plan le plus petit localement. Et la deuxième chose, c'est comment trouver des ressources. Comment trouver des ressources au niveau international, au niveau national, au niveau régional, au niveau local, pour financer le changement climatique, les effets du changement climatique, parce que malheureusement, nos pays supportent, ou nos régions, nos villes supportent ces effets. Je pense que c'est vraiment les deux thématiques qui ont été longuement présentées par les différents panélistes ici. Léa, maybe you should go on.
I think let me give a brief summary in English. He said he took a lot of notes from the panelists, which is, of course, always very welcome and exactly what we'd like to hear, and that he's not going to repeat everything that's being said because it was such a fantastic panel, but that his main takeaways were how can we work together best, and also how can we get money and more money to the international, national and local levels.
Thank you, Léa. Sur le premier point, ce qui me vient en tête après avoir écouté les uns et les autres, je dois dire que nous notons qu'il faut un dialogue permanent entre tous les acteurs de la chaîne, donc entre les acteurs locaux, qui peuvent être des élus, qui peuvent être des responsables d'ONG, mais qui peuvent être également des gouvernants, comme c'est le cas pour notre ami ici ou pour moi-même.
We need dialogue between everybody, NGOs, national governments, local governments. Really, this collaboration is necessary.
Et cela passe par la bonne connaissance du phénomène du changement climatique, qui n'est pas toujours bien compris. Nous venons de localités, de pays, souvent de régions, où en réalité ces problématiques-là ne sont pas du tout connues. Quand on en parle, on a l'impression que c'est des choses d'ailleurs, c'est des choses de l'Occident, ou c'est des choses de populations évoluées. Vous voyez, donc nous avons besoin de faire connaître cela. Nous avons besoin de communiquer davantage sur ces questions. Nous avons besoin de former Je pense que c'est le terme, de former les acteurs locaux, de façon à ce que la mise en œuvre de notre stratégie soit plus efficace.
The minister is saying that we need more awareness on climate change issues. It's often perceived as an issue that's only in developed countries and only can be addressed there. So we really need to communicate about the benefits of climate action, specifically at the local level.
Et nous avons besoin que la stratégie qui est définie au niveau national ait une déclinaison très locale. Et une déclinaison locale avec ce qu'on peut appeler un jeu de rôle précis de chacun des acteurs. We need to have the national strategy be splitted in compartments that can be addressed to each local actor. That's why I say we need to precise what is the jeu de rôle. Jeu de rôle in English. Jeu de rôle.
Like really the role of everybody.
Voilà. Donc sur le premier point, vraiment pour résumer, puisque je n'ai que 5 minutes, je pense qu'on peut s'en tenir à ces quelques observations. Sur le deuxième point, c'est-à-dire comment mettre en lien les partenaires locaux avec les partenaires internationaux, je dirais que la première chose à faire, c'est d'abord d'avoir des interventions alignées. C'est-à-dire qu'il nous faut avoir des politiques qui ont un lien avec les ambitions qui sont menées au niveau mondial. Il me paraît difficile d'aller, par exemple, vers les Nations Unies ou vers l'UN Habitat avec une politique qui n'est pas comprise. Donc, il est important qu'il y ait cet alignement entre les politiques supranationales, les politiques qui viennent de structures multilatérales et les politiques que nous mettons en œuvre dans nos pays et dans nos régions.
Really the importance of translating what's happening at the global level also to the national and to the local level and ensuring that there is alignment between all these different levels.
L'un des intervenants a parlé de top-down et de bottom-up. Je pense qu'il a parfaitement raison. Dans cette démarche, nous avons besoin aussi de partager et de modéliser de bonnes pratiques locales. Souvent, il y a des pratiques locales qui sont à encourager, qui sont méconnues, et il nous appartient à nous, acteurs gouvernementaux, de les faire remonter aux institutions qui sont en charge de ce type.